morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this Sunday? I have to say, it's good to be back. Well, I say that, but I'd happily pop back to Bobcat in the Czech Republic anytime they care to invite me. What a fantastic couple of days. They were superb hosts, as they always are. The equipment was awesome. The people were fabulous. We had some fantastic conversations too along the way. We will be bringing you details of all of that. Somebody's messed with my microphone. We will be bringing you details of all of that in the fullness of time. But I do want to give you a first of a number of heads ups. I'm not sure if you can even pluralize that, but you get the idea. One of the bits of tech that Bobcat showed us was what it calls its operator presence system. So you know how you currently have a beacon to let people know that your seatbelt is fastened? Yeah, you're living in the past. Bobcat system, which is not yet available, but I've seen it demonstrated, uses in-cab 3D cameras to monitor your position and your gestures. So as long as your hands are on both joysticks, you can go about your business just as you would today. But if you take your hands off one of the levers or both, scratch your nose, pick up a drink, answer your phone, the system temporarily disables the work group, rendering your machine inoperable, but only for a millisecond or two. As soon as your hands are back where they belong, the work group starts again and you can go about your business. It doesn't stop the engine. It merely cuts the power to the specific task. So you think about all those times that you do reach for your phone, have a drink, have a sandwich, or when maybe you're leaning over to speak to one of your colleagues and you accidentally knock a lever with your elbow. Gone, goodbye. That's a thing of the past. And it gets better. According to one of the Bobcat guys, a guy called VJ Nerva, who we've seen on the show in the past, this could be just the beginning. He reckons that 3D camera tech is so smart, it could even be adopted rather to allow you to operate not via joystick, but by gesture. Nicholas, 5594, do you work for Bobcat? I do not, but I have just got back from visiting them, which is why I'm wearing this T-shirt. Thank you for the question, but no, I don't work for Bobcat. Yes, you will be able to operate your piece of machinery using gestures. I'll leave you to fill in the gaps on what gestures you would like to use. But imagine that, rather than sitting there clinging on, it would be like, if everyone remembers the movie Minority Report, to be able to... Or I don't know. I've tried operating a drone using gestures. Works remarkably well, which, bear in mind, that's over Bluetooth. I just wonder what the future of all of that is. We've had some comments here. Let me very quickly have a look. There is. I tell you what. Let me go back to the beginning of the chat. Well, not the very beginning, because Dan Cullen was here at 5:45 this morning, and we had a bit of a natter while I was getting today's show ready. But very quickly. Footy is here, who is now looking for another job, sadly. Our friend Andy Hare up at Northern Track is here. We're doing attachments a bit later on, so good morning, Andy. Ken Hatcher is here, all the way from Wales. Peter McKenna is here. Good morning to Gary Muirhead as well. Yes, I am... I had a couple of days off. I do apologise. Morning all, says Steve Williamson. Steve, where the hell have you been? I've been in the Czech Republic with the fine folks at Bobcat. And you know those. I mean, I don't know, because of what I do for a living. It's a really strange thing. So sometimes you go on these things, and it's all very much strictly business and everything else. Bobcat and Volvo, to a degree, less so. But, here's all our machines. Go and have a play. But let's just have a chat. And one of the best chats I had was on. I'll come back to that in a second. One second. Nicholas from 5594 over on Instagram. Are you from the United States? I am not. I am in God's country, the United Kingdom. I'm just outside London as we speak. Yes, let me do this very quickly. Bobcat. So I've come back from Bobcat. And I came clutching gifts. So if you could, let me do this properly. There you are. I have up for grabs today a very, very smart Bobcat hat. It's got Bobcat written on the side. It's got the Bobcat logo. But apart from that, very, very subtle. Very, very subtle. Bit like my T-shirt. My T-shirt, actually. Very subtle indeed. if you'd like to win that, we do have a banner for this. All you need to do is type the word Bobcat into the chat. Where's my banner gone? It's here somewhere. There we are. Just type the word Bobcat into the chat and we will get that over to you, assuming you win the draw, obviously. Just looking to let you know, you can't enter if you're on Instagram. If you want to enter to win the Bobcat hat, you need to be over on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, I'm afraid. So, Nicholas, sorry, won't work from there because our system won't recognise it, I'm afraid. But if you would like to go and find us over on YouTube or Facebook, please do so. Andy Darvell is here as well. Good morning, Andy. Peter McKenna says, so glad you're back. Life's boring without you. It's very nice for you to say. Thank you, Peter. I have to be honest, though. It is one of those. Always look forward to getting back to see the wife and the kids and the dogs and everything else. But I could quite easily have done a week in the Czech Republic. Weather was fantastic. Food was incredible. But as I say, some of the conversations, and I will come back to the chat in a second. Just want to remind you, I've written an article today, and it was actually partly inspired by a discussion I had with Bobcat's John Christofides, who has been on this show in the past. We were on a coach on the way back to our hotel, and we were talking about all things tech. And John said something that really resonated with me. He said that in the future, there will be machine operators that have never driven a machine without GPS, Bluetooth, reversing cameras, obstacle avoidance systems, and who won't even remember a time when diesel was the only fuel option. And that set me thinking about all the tech that we all grew up with, VHS recorders, rotary phones. Do you remember rotary phones? God almighty, how long it took to dial those. DVD players, and how quickly we've adapted to a life beyond them. The article is ready for you right now. If you would like to read it, I do have a button for it. Let me have a look. Let me press that there. It's called Don't Sit on the Geofence. I thought it was a play on words. Basically, it is Don't Sit on the Fence about tech, because tech will happen regardless of your feelings towards it. That article is ready for you right now. And finally, I've got a second video in which I speak directly to my new AI buddy, Bruce. If you were here last week, you'll know that I've already done one human to AI podcast, but we've done another one. I'll tell you a bit more about that later in the show because I do have a clip for you. But just one final reminder before we crack on. On this day, in 3 weeks' time, it will be the middle day of Hillhead. The middle day. It is less than 3 weeks away now. So if you haven't already registered, I strongly recommend that you do so. I'm going to be there, and I hope to see a lot of you there as well. Before I press the go button, I'm going to hop over to the chat. Steve says, not sure on that. Tracking, I don't hold the joysticks. One of the things that, and again, this is why it's a prototype, one of the things that I found absolutely fascinating is just the sheer ability. As I say, if you can program it to recognize that as a stop or that as a dig or whatever it might be, I'm sure you can teach it to not worry about your hands being in your lap while you're tracking. Very, very good. Very, very good indeed. Peter McKenna says that's a good idea. Totally agree. I wish Trimble was voice controlled, would save a lot of pressing of the buttons or the screen. We had a long chat about this, and funnily enough, this is I'll be playing you our latest AI human podcast a bit later in the show, and that is one of the things that is really, really interesting. You think about we touch on things like literacy and language barriers as an example. As it stands at the moment, we've got people like Footy, who is severely dyslexic, who can't interact with a GPS because it's very text-based and symbol-based and everything else. Imagine just being able to ask it, can I, or could you, or whatever. That's precisely how my AI works. That's how I'm able to do a podcast with it. Imagine a future where that's the case. But then imagine, as it stands at the moment, even if you've got some pretty advanced telematics on your machine and you've got the very latest tech in cab, if you develop a fault, it will flash up a warning signal or whatever it might be. Imagine if you could just press a button and it would say, hey, Steve, you're running low on oil, fella. Better get out and sort that. Imagine if you could have that, where you could have literally a two-way interaction. Peter McKenna, imagine giving the coffee bean a shake to one of the site lads. Yes, that's a fantastic idea for a gesture. Mr. Ford is in the house. Morning, Chris. No show is complete without you. I like the idea of using gestures. Sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah, but as I say, particularly if you could, think about this. It is that flexible. I mean, even if you are, let's imagine you are strongly left-handed. You could make the gestures your left hand rather than your right. Bob McGowan of Helidrone Surveys is here, and he's a drone pilot, I imagine. He says, "Hi, Mark. Thank you, Bob. Hi to you as well. Thank you for joining us. No idea why you're here, but good to see you nonetheless." We've had the first of the entries coming in for our hat, which looks like that. We're 12 minutes in, and we still haven't started the show, so I'm going to rectify that in just a second. Did we get to see the 1 million Bobcat loader? We did not. No, we did not. It was spoken about in dispatches, but no, we didn't get to see it. Dan Cullen is here as well. Good morning, Dan. That's the link to the article. Nicholas Finch, who I'm going to guess is Nicholas over on Instagram. I don't know, but he's just entered the competition. Disaster, says Chris Field. I can't find my teaspoon. The mug of chocolate will be lumpy in the bottom. Little things and little minds. Yeah, but that's a big deal. Nobody wants that. Why is it? And it's not just hot chocolate and things like that, but why is it where if your drink isn't mixed properly, you get to the bottom and it spoils all that's gone before it? Yeah, anybody else? We'll come back to that. Let's have a look. Jim Turner's in the house as well. And yes, Nicholas Finch is indeed from Instagram. So thank you very much indeed. You are in the competition. And we have a very quick look. We've had 11 entries, although I think I'm a couple of those because I inadvertently mentioned the word Bobcat to Dan Cullen while I was getting ready for the show. So I'll have to exclude myself when we get to it. Peter McKenna says, I don't mind lumpy hot chocolate. Right, okay, shall we crack on, because we do have a lot to go through. So don't forget, into the competition, because who wouldn't want to win a hat? It is just type Bobcat into the chat. Simple as that. Couldn't be easier. There is an article to read which is called what is it called? I can't even remember what it is called. Don't sit on the geofence. Yes, I knew it. I knew I'd come up with a snappy title. Yes, go have a look at that as well, and we'll come back to all of the other things immediately after this. And have you noticed? Haven't even played the Breakfast Show rap today. May play that for you a bit later in the show, but here we go. I will get on with the show in a second, but I've just seen a comment, and this is precisely the kind of thing that I find interesting, right? So we were talking about our friend Chris and his lumpy hot chocolate, right? So Peter McKenna has very sensibly, as anybody sensible would do, stir it with your pen. Here we have a pen. I could do that very thing if I had hot chocolate. I could do that. What will you stir your hot chocolate and your coffee with and your tea 20 years hence, when we've completely done away with pen and paper and we're now using electronics? Are you going to stick your iPhone into your coffee mug and give it a stir? See? Unexpected outcomes of switching to technology. Steve Williamson says, years ago, before social media and that, things changed all the time, new things being made, etc. We maybe saw one advert and that was it, but people couldn't have their say. We all adapted, we all changed, we all managed. Now social media lets people have an opinion. New electric coming to construction, it's like, oh no, we can't be having that. That won't work, accept it because it's happening, regardless if you hate it or if you think it won't work, because it will work. Yes, it will work. And I can honestly tell you, I have driven electric machines and they're great. I'm sorry, I realize that's not necessarily a popular opinion, but they are really, really, really good. Just the way it is, Nicholas Finch says he's a technician for Sunbelt Rentals. Just got 5 of the new electric Bobcats. Nicholas Finch, Tell us more. What do you make of them? I mean, I know you're a technician as opposed to an operator, but what do you make of them? Two things before you even answer that. I will say this: hats off to Sunbelt Rentals for actually opting into the electric revolution. Fair play to them on that. But yeah, that's fantastic news. I'd love to hear what you're making of the electrics. And bearing in mind you are a technician. I'm just going to go back to it. I wonder, have you, as a technician, had additional training, or have you had any additional education to make sure that you're up to speed with electrics? Because obviously, very different to a diesel. What additional training, if any, have you had? How do you find working on an electric machine? I don't suppose you're doing too much working on electric machines at the moment, because if they're just fresh off the Bobcat production line, my guess is they're running really rather well. But just love to hear from you. They're pretty interesting. Just starting to roll them out to customers. A lot of customers still prefer the diesel over electric, but we're getting them out there. Well, hats off to you, Nicholas French, and to the fine folks at Sunbelt Rentals. That's what we like to hear. We'll come back to all things tech a little bit later, because there's more on that. But it is Wednesday, the 5th of June, believe it or not. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the walrus of demolition. In today's show, we're going to bring you the first look at the all-new Volvo R60 rigid hauler. Bridge blasting, but not as we know it. The Eagle has landed at Mantovanibenne. Plus, could AI and machine learning actually copy your capabilities? Before we get to all of that, there is a small matter of today's mystery machine to decipher. So let me play you the animation. I haven't seen this for a couple of days, so here we go. Yes, let's talk about Mystery Machine, shall we? There we go. That's what you've got to work with. I tell you what, I'm planning to give these away tomorrow, okay? I've got a pair of Bobcat sunglasses here. I'll tell you what, let me take that away so you can actually see what I'm talking about. A pair of Bobcat sunglasses, very smart they are as well. I'm going to give those away tomorrow. However, if anybody can get today's Mystery Machine purely from that, you can have them today. You can have them today. Steve is going for a cat skid steer. It is not. Dan Cullen says, missed the animation. Yes. I actually find myself humming some of these tunes. Not that one so much, but I do find myself humming these things. Steve Williamson says, well done, Sunbelt. It started already. Yeah, the revolution is here, and it will be televised. A Lugong skid steer, says Dan Cullen. It's not. A Dozer, says Footy. No, it's not. Is it a Tanner H555? It is none of those things. So I'm going to take it away. Nicholas Finch says it looks like a JCB skid steer. It may well do, but it isn't. I'm going to take it away for now. Nobody gets the sunglasses today, so you'll have to tune in tomorrow if you want to be in with a chance of winning some Volvo Bobcat sunglasses. I'm looking at my screen, having a different conversation. Bear with me. I'm talking about Bobcat sunglasses. Before I show you the first part of today's video content, should I quickly remind you of our question of the day? Yeah, our question today basically relates to the article that I published earlier today, in which I was talking about all the tech that we have known and lost in the past. Things like the Sony Walkman, the rotary telephone, the typewriter, VHS recorders, old games consoles, all of that kind of thing. So my question of today is this. What old tech do you miss the most? Do you still hanker for an 8-track tape deck? Do you reminisce about your DVD collection? Do you regret doing away with your old rotary telephone, your fax machine, or even your telex machine? Let us know in the chat. What old tech do you miss the most? One thing that the article mentions, actually, is there will be a generation that will never, ever use a physical paper map to find a location. Imagine that. I mean, I've been on SatNav and GPS and everything else for a decade or more. But, the first, I don't know how long, I honestly can't remember how long, 10, 15 years that I was a driver, if I was going anywhere, map. There you are. Nicholas French says the first iMac. Oh, the first iMac. Yeah, remember it well. Was that the one with the big coloured back? Had a big sort of domey back. I think that may have been the one. Steve says, to be honest, I can't say I miss anything. And that's the truth. Why would I? Yeah, I take that. There are certain things, though, I think you just... Unless you were there, I don't think anybody fully understands what a revolution... It sounds ridiculous to say this now, but what a revolution the Sony Walkman was. If you wanted to listen to music, you did so indoors, at home, with a record player or possibly a tape deck. And then along comes Sony, who say, nope, stick a pair of headphones on, clip this bloody great thing onto your belt, and you can take your music wherever you go. Wow, that's revolution right there. Machinery Movers Magazine has just joined us over on Instagram. Good morning, gentlemen, or should I say, top of the morning to you. Good to see you all here. Another guest on our mystery machine, which I'm going to show you. Somebody said, is it a Case ST175 skid steer? No, it's not one of those. It's not a Teletruck either. I'm going to show you a little bit more of the mystery machine because it looks like that. It's on wheels. What can I tell you? While you're figuring that out, Jim Turner says, I used to have 3 county OS street maps in my snap bag when I used to be on the plant hire. Yeah, I can believe it. Nicholas Finch saying, is it a Caterpillar machine? It is not. It is not. Is it a JCB 2TS-7? It is not one of those either. Steve Williamson, yes, I did want to remind everybody of this because I was aware of this. Steve Williamson is actually in Earth Movers magazine this month. Deservedly so, if you ask me. He's been flying the flag for the industry for quite some time. He's done a fantastic job at various exhibitions. About time he had his moment in somebody else's spotlight rather than just his own. So yes, if you are a subscriber to Earth Movers, look forward to your copy if you haven't got it already. Failing that, go to your local WH Smith, pick yourself up and glory. Bask in his reflected glory. Is it a skid steer, says Steve? It is a skid steer. Need more than that, though. Is it a motor scraper? It is most certainly not. Chris Ford says, is it a JCB 1CX? No, it is not. Peter says, I don't miss anything. Had good and bad times over the years. Sinclair Spectrum computers were probably my favourite items at the time, but things have advanced so much. No waiting 15 minutes for the game or program to preload. Instantaneous nowadays, so productive. Yes, I've mentioned this before. I will play us our first film in just a moment because it is a corker. The very first job I had as a journalist, and I was kind of semi-professional at the time, was on a computer magazine, and they basically employed me part-time to go along as a 18, 19-year-old, play games, and then tell them what I thought. That was and that was exactly it. The games used to come on audio cassettes. You'd plug the audio cassette in, and then wait about 15 minutes for the thing to communicate with the games console, and then you could play a game. And sometimes you couldn't. Sometimes it just didn't work at all. Yeah. My other half saying, question a cassette player that I tape the top 40 every week. Illegal behaviour, apparently. One tape lasted forever with a bit of sellotape and trying to never get the adverts. Oh, see, the youngsters among you won't remember that. But that idea, you had to press the play and the record button, and you'd wait for the DJ to stop talking and quickly press them and try and avoid him so that you just had pure music. Ken Hatcher says, I remember the ZX Spectrum and BBC Micro. Don't remember the BBC Micro, but I certainly had the ZX Spectrum. Gary Muirhead is going for a New Holland 300 skid steer. It is not. Nicholas French is going for a John Deere skid steer. It is not. And Dan Cullen's going for a JCB 135 HD. Shall I show you a bit more? I think I probably should, because we do need to crack on. There you are. That's a bit more that you've got to work with. Keep the guesses coming in. Now, I had a bit of a chat with Steve Williamson before we came online today over on WhatsApp. Just a conversation between the two of us. And he was telling me about a video that somebody has posted that he didn't think was particularly good. Yeah, okay. Well, enough of that. Compare and contrast. That is the work, Steve, that is the work of the amateurs. This is how the professionals do it. This is my son, Fred, and the Volvo R60. No comparison. And that, my friends in Worthing, is how you film a thing. Yeah. Now, Steve says the ending, porn. Funnily enough, we actually had not quite that comment, but we had a very similar comment when we showed that to Volvo. They were mightily impressed as well. Yes, I know what Fred can do, and I'm often stood beside him while he's doing it. But that was a good one. Now, we do need to go back to the mystery machine because it is causing some consternation among the audience. What do we got? We've got Gary going for the New Holland 300 skid steer. It is not one of those. It's not a John Deere either. It's not a JCB. It's not a John Deere of any kind. Is it a case skid steer? No, it is not. Is it the Komatsu rather, SK815? It is not. Is it the Wacker-Neuson SW28? It's not that either. Wacker-Neuson SW20? No, it is not. Who's that? Peter McKenna saying the video was hot. Dan saying Wacker-Neuson? It is not. Yes, it's that cab. Just don't recognise it. And I'll tell you, I mean, we already know it's a skid steer, right? So this is a brand that, I mean, it still exists. This is a current machine and a current manufacturer. They used to be quite the big deal here in the UK, less so now. And I think it's because they're sold under a different name. But these are a current machine. Let me show you a little bit more just to keep you going. Ah, yes, it has more than one wheel. Doesn't that just tell you everything? Mike Wolf has just joined us over from World Highways. In actual fact, a bit of that footage, I'm not sure, but a bit of that footage might have actually been Mike Wolf at the controls. Not sure, but it may have been. The new Volvo CE R60 is a good machine. I was impressed with the way it drove. There's a lot of visibility from the cab, plenty of room in there too. I did have the window open, so I can't comment on the efficiency of the AC or the engine noise levels, though. Yes, there he was, Mike Wolf, window open, elbow out, sunglasses on, looking every inch the gangster. That's not absolutely true, but you get the idea anyway. Steve Williamson has just said, Gel. Oh, Was it the fact that they used to be a big deal and now they're not so much? Was that what gave it away? Is it the fact that they're sold under another name? But yes, Steve, you're very much, my friend, on the right track. You haven't got... what I need is, we need a model. You can work your way through the model numbers, then you'll probably get to exactly where you need to be. While you're doing that, let me take that away because I do need to play a smidgen of this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Should we go back? Let's have a look. Michael has just said, not quite, no sunglasses. Yes, but his elbow was out the window and he had the wind in his hair, which I'm envious of because he's a couple of years older than me and he's still got a full head of it. The swine. Nicholas French says, is it a Gel? It is a Gel, but we don't know which model. That's what we're after. Peter McKenna saying the MC125 from Volvo. It's not. It is definitely a Gel. So you've got a long time now to figure out exactly what that model is because the film I'm about to play you is about 6 minutes long, I think. Let me just have a quick look. Yes, it's about almost 7 minutes long. You were probably here a few weeks back when the news was reporting about a container ship that had struck a bridge in Baltimore. You remember that? Collapsed the bridge, and the bridge collapsed onto the container ship, and all of those things. I'm sure you remember all of this. Well, the fine folks at CDI, Controlled Demolition Inc., have since been working on it to actually remove the fallen bridge, the stricken bridge, and the latest part of that was actually removing some trusses from the ship itself. As I say, you've got 6 minutes and 47 seconds of this, so sit back and enjoy CDI doing bridge blasting, but not like you've ever seen it before.
Tom is ready. Firing. Pin is armed.
Tracer Cascade. Ray is clear. Jim Santoro. Jim and Jesse are clear. Adrian, are you clear?
Adrian, clear.
All right, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Copy that. Check that corner door, place the size of ball, check camera, let's check. Check whatever the phone.
Pretty smart, right? Sorry, I was just reading Instagram. Good morning to my friend Marco over at Italmac, who's just joined us over there. Must have been really loud, that bang. Yeah, absolutely. Lots of comments on that one. No great surprise, I guess. Dan Cullen says it's amazing the damage this caused and the shipping mayhem. Yeah, absolutely. It was a main route. Obviously, some wreck. That's what you call precision demolition. Dangerous work. I love it. And then... Obviously, I was watching it for the blast and the precision and everything else, but man alive, actually being in an aerial platform, a MUP, on a boat, trying to place explosives like this, like being on a rocking chair, unbelievable. I'm going to come back to Michael's comment in just a moment. Seriously, great work, all involved. Chris Ford asked the question, excuse me, have they managed to find all the bodies of the men that were working on the bridge? Hope it's not the American version of Didcot where there are no answers. They have. I think Peter McKenna actually confirms that. Yes, all the bodies have been recovered. Yes, I checked that, and yes, they certainly have been recovered. Now, bearing in mind that happened at the end of March, have a look at this. Mike is reporting over on World Highways. Replacing the Francis Scott Bridge is likely to cost a whopping $1.9 billion. An Italian contractor, WeBuild, has already come up with a design. If you'd like to go and have a look at that, go over to worldhighways.com. You can see the direct link there, but worldhighways.com, that will take you where you need to be. Go and subscribe. It really is very, very good. And bearing in mind, you know, although there's a demolition background to this show, we do, if there were a Venn diagram, Mike and I would meet somewhere in the middle. Ish. Showing the world, that's how you do it, most certainly. Peter McKenna says 2 bodies were recovered a few days after the disaster, but then divers had to suspend their search due to the dangers posed by the bridge debris. A 3rd body was recovered more than a week later. A 4th body was identified in mid-April, and a 5th and 6th were recovered in May. Yes, that's exactly what I read on Google as well. Probably the hardest thing you could demolish, an already partly demolished structure. Yeah. I mean, obviously, and Andy Darvell's here, he'll tell you, obviously, demolition contractors do build in contingencies, but on the rare occasions when a blast, particularly an explosive demolition, doesn't go well, even though there is a contingency, you can see on the faces of those involved, that's not good, because you just don't know what you're dealing with at that point. Must be some serious emotions going on working that job. Yeah, I've always wondered that, particularly, bearing in mind another demolition crew went into Didcot and took down the remaining unstable portion of the boiler house there. Imagine doing that, knowing full well that there were 3 bodies laying just a few hundred meters, possibly less, away from where you're working, and you're expected to concentrate on your work. I don't know how they do it. Steve says, reminds me of working on the driller, having the trying to handle and feed explosive down the drill line, lowered with wire line. It was used to perforate the drill line at oil depth and to release it. That's when things can hit the fan. Dangerous work, but by God, I loved it. So interesting. Yes, I'm sure it is. And there is something about that. I mean, I often talk about the camaraderie within this industry, but you imagine working as part of the crew on something like that, given the inherent dangers and, all that had gone before, the disaster that had happened before. Yeah, I would imagine that really draws the guys together. So, as Dan has rightly said, some emotion, that was Andy Dalvell actually, some emotions going on working on that job. Indeed. We'll come back to that. But I can tell you, we do have a winner. We do have a right answer, actually, on our mystery machine. Despite the fact that I confirmed that it was a girl, people still continue to go off-piste with a Mustang 4200V. It is not one of those. We had confirmed it was a girl because of Nicholas French. Peter McKenna went for the V420. But I can tell you that the winner is Mr. Williamson, who says it's the girl R220. It is. And I can prove it. Let me put it up on the screen. There you are. Actually, let me take his comment away. There we are. That's what it was. The Gel R220 skid steer loader. They used to be such a big deal back in the UK, back in the days. In actual fact, on the first of many attempts to actually sort out what was left of Battersea Power Station, I actually went with Gel to Battersea Power Station to see them taking out the old, the works within. The plan was always, because it's a listed building, the plan was always to keep the structure and the towers and everything else. But we were actually inside, and I went there with Gel. Can't remember the guy's name for the life of me, but went there, and there was a couple of Gel skid steers in there. That would have been late 1980s, I would have thought. I didn't go off-piste. Gel and Mustang are both Manitou brands. They are, but a Mustang is not a Gel. I do believe you were definitely off-piste, and Manitou has got an O in it. Just saying. Makes you proud, I bet. Yeah, it's one of those things, actually. Particularly when you see these CDI videos, there's often that whooping and hollering and backslapping and stuff that Americans love to do. But I think in being involved in something like that, I think you would feel like that. I think you absolutely would be patting each other on the back and whooping with delight. So fair play to them, CDI, doing what they do. We'll be sticking with the theme of Demolition in just a moment, but we do need to play a bit of this. Okay, I'm going to address this one with our friend Mr. Williamson, who has just correctly identified the mystery machine of the day. Am I the only one? Sometimes I well up with videos like that. I can't say I do that. There is a weird thing, though. There is a kind of a sense of pride, I guess, is the thing. I do remember we played a video that Fred shot it, so maybe there was a bit of that in there. But we shot a video with the guys at Armac taking down part of the approach to the old Wembley Stadium. And once the video aired, it was like, Jesus, that's an accomplishment. I think it helped, as I say, it helped because Fred had filmed it. He's my son. But it also helps the fact that, we'd spent a couple of days down there. Already knew the guys at Armac, but got on very, very well with them, and it was just like I was part of that. So yes, I can see what you're saying. Last coal-powered station is closing in September, due to be demolished by 2030. Where is that one? I did have a chart at one point of what was going, but because we're down to the last couple, I think there's one. Fiddler's Ferry, I think, is going on at the moment. Peter McKenna says, music is the only thing that makes me well up. Seen too much in my 51 years, I bet. 4:30 does happen twice a day, and it's light. I don't know what that's talking about, but okay. Yes, I did mention the fact that we were talking about demolition. I noticed a thing when I read this earlier. I've mentioned this before. When I mentioned a Chinese brand of excavators, I'll do it for you in a moment, I sound a bit camp. I can't say the name Shantway without sounding Shantway. A little bit camp. And as it turns out, they're not unique, because I can't say the name of the next equipment manufacturer without sounding like somebody trying to speak Italian. So while you're processing that in your head, here is that company, Mantovanibenne. Yes, had a couple of responses to my pronunciation of that Chinese excavator maker. Steve says, it doesn't sound camp when I say it. Trust me, try it. I will try it in just a second, but Garvin at Mostly Diggers over on Instagram says, oh, suits you, sir. So here we are, my butchist voice, my butchist walrus of demolition voice. Shantway. That's even worse. That's even worse. Steve Williamson says, looks good, by the way. Don't know much about these types of attachments. This could be really good or not. I wouldn't know. Yeah, well, I tell you now. Mantovanibenne. Bellissimo. They really do make some very, very good attachments. And just to clarify, that last coal-fired power station that is going to be demolished by 2030, Chris Ford has just confirmed it is Radcliffe-on-Trent up in Nottingham, up in his part of the world, actually. So, yes. Andy Dalvell, what did you make of the Mantovanibenne? Let us know. We've got a little bit more to come. So, just to let you know, I'm going to remind you very quickly. We've had 12 entries for the hat, which looks like that. So the Bobcat hat up for grabs today, and it is very smart indeed. Have to say, this one here remains my favourite, and I do actually wear this on a fairly regular basis. But I now have more Bobcat hats than I have anything else. Not because I've seen Bobcat a lot, although I have, but because their hats are really, really good. So if anybody wants to win that, you need to type Bobcat into the chat between now and the end of the show. Speaking of the end of the show, let's crack on with a bit of this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Yeah, just on the subject of Bobcats, Steve says their merch is really good. Dan Cullen says their hats are cool as. Yeah, I mean this in the nicest possible way. I mean I've got like I'm not even sure what you'd call it. But it's a hoodie, but it's a full length zip thing from JCB, which I absolutely love. I really do like that. I've got some awesome Caterpillar boots, love those as well. But if I were to go into public, if I were going in public and I needed a hat, it would be the Bobcat. And also, I would say they are the only brand making clothing that you would actually wear out of choice. I may have stepped too far there, but I think they really do. I would say the best looking logo is Bobcat. Bobcat or Steel Wrist would be my vote on logos, I think. How did Bobcat get its name? Funny you should ask, Chris Ford, because I actually know the answer to this. I knew the answer, but funnily enough, it was part of the present. Got some schmeckers on my desk here. So, if you remember rightly, we interviewed a guy called Joe Keller, whose father invented, or co-invented, jointly invented, the machine that would go on to be the Bobcat. Well, the word is they sat down one day and they said, we need a name for a machine. And according to myth and Bobcat legend, this was one of the shortest meetings in Bobcat history, okay? And this is the way they tell the story. So they said, we need something that conveys, it's agile and everything else. And somebody went, what, like a Bobcat? A Bobcat is a lynx, a wild cat, bigger than your average tabby, but not a tiger. So yes, and they basically said, yeah, Bobcat it is. What should we call it? How about a Bobcat? Yep, job done. There you are. Mark, if you don't know the answer, there'll be something wrong. Well, yes, having spent that much time with them, yeah. Bobcat equipment in honor of the quick, agile, and tough prairie animal. The rest, as they say, is history. I wish I'd put it like that, Peter. Thank you very much indeed for that. Nicholas Finch says, "Do you guys have Ditch Witch in the UK?" We do. We do. I've got to be honest. That's if I'm looking at the construction equipment business. Let me do it to the camera. If I'm looking at the construction equipment business, there, Ditch Witch kind of exists just over here a bit. See them occasionally at exhibitions and stuff, but don't really hear a great deal from them. I'm assuming, audience, please enlighten Mr. Finch. Do we still have Ditch Witch here? Do we? I'm fairly sure we do. Not seen them for a while. Dan Cullen says, I need another Bobcat hat, as do we all. Gary Muirhead says, one tough animal. Unfortunately, he prefaced it with Bobcat. I thought for a moment there he was talking about me, which obviously would have been a complete lie. Now, should we talk about AI? Yes, there we are. There is Ditch Witch, yes. Ed Butler, superstar. Ed Butler deals with them. Could be Wales. So yes, we I can confirm, Nicholas Finch, that we have them in at least one part of the United Kingdom. Not sure about the rest, but over in Welsh Wales, there's a guy called Ed Butler who deals with Ditch Witch. So yes, they are here-ish. JCB have made some brilliant clothing over the years. Still wear a black jacket they had made to funerals. To funerals? No, I don't wear branded clothing to funerals. I've got to be honest with you. I try to avoid funerals wherever I can, but I don't wear branded clothing to funerals, but quite happily to wear them down the shops. Cool. Just wondering because they are a major brand here in the United States. Yeah, in actual fact, I mean, they're kind of a reminder. When I go to ConExpo every 3 years, you see the Ditch Witch stand. It's like, oh yeah, Ditch Witch, I remember. And Peter McKenna has just said Ditch Witch are in Berkshire, which makes me even more embarrassed because Berkshire is 30 miles down the road. I should have known that. My apologies. So, AI. So, if you were here a week or so ago, you will know that I filmed a film with me talking to ChatGPT version 4 Omni. So you can have a conversation with it. The whole conversation was inspired by my mate VJ Nerva over at Bobcat. He said he uses it to chat things through while he's in his car or walking his dog. Believe it or not, and this is part of a video we've got coming, believe it or not, VJ Nerva lives so far in the future, he's using AI to help train his dog. And I'm being serious. So, AI. I basically did it just to prove that it could be done. You could have a two-way conversation with AI. Well, it went down a storm. I had positive comments from people that, frankly, I've never even met, saying that was a good idea. That's interesting. So you should do more of those. So I have. Later today, in actual fact, I'm saying later today, about 2 minutes' time, over on YouTube, a full-length video, I think it's about 20 minutes long, actually, will drop. But I've pulled out a part of it because, well, it gives you a flavour of the video anyway, but it kind of hints back at what we were talking about at the very top of the show. So let me play this for you and let me see what you think. In our previous episode, you said that AI was very good at repetitive tasks. If a human showed an AI how to carry out a specific physical task, could AI or machine learning then replicate that task?
Yes, absolutely. One of the strengths of AI, particularly machine learning, is its ability to learn from examples and replicate tasks that have been demonstrated to it. If a human shows an AI how to carry out a specific physical task, such as operating a piece of machinery or performing a certain action, machine learning algorithms can analyze the input data, e.g., images, sensor data, and learn the patterns and relationships that enable successful task execution. By training on a dataset of examples, the AI can then generalize its learning to perform the task on new, unseen data. This process is often referred to as supervised learning, where the AI learns from labeled examples provided by humans. Once trained, the AI can autonomously carry out the task with a high degree of accuracy, making it well-suited for repetitive or routine tasks in various industries, including construction and demolition. It's important to note that the effectiveness of AI in replicating tasks depends on various factors, including the quality and quantity of training data, the complexity of the task, and the capabilities of the machine learning algorithms used. However, with proper training and optimization, AI can indeed replicate physical tasks demonstrated by humans.
AI can replicate tasks demonstrated to it by humans. Going back to the top of this show, when I was talking about the operator presence 3D camera system, which is AI-driven from Bobcat. It's not available yet, but it exists. Imagine that you could sit in a machine, be monitored, doing your things, and that AI could then replicate that. AI could replicate that. Yeah. Ditch Witch are not in Berkshire, as it turns out. Peter McKenna has corrected himself. Ditch Witch equipment dealer for the whole of the UK and Ireland, supplying and supporting complete equipment range. They've got a 10,000 square foot facility in Swansea, includes a training centre, offices and a workshop. Also on the same site, there is a 1 acre demo ground. Ditch Witch, invite me to your demo ground. I'd like to come and film some things. Chris Ford says they are an underrated company in the UK. Chris Ford says, every time you mention AI, Jim Turner reaches for his rubber gloves and his straws of semen. Look out, Daisy, here he comes. Peter McKenna says they use AI in milking parlours nowadays. Do they? Do they do that? For what? Peter, don't leave us hanging. What the hell are they using AI in milking parlours for? I need to know. That the full-length version of that video will be out, as I say. Well, it dropped at 11 o'clock, I think it was. Let me just go over and find out. Bear with me 1 second. It should be live in my YouTube studio right about now. I believe it is. It is indeed. And I can tell you it is a 27-minute podcast. 27 minutes of me talking to my phone. That's the future, people. That's the future, people. Peter McKenna says, apparently AI is milking cows and feeding and cleaning up after them. Is it really? Is it? Speaking on the topic of AI, Bobcat invited technicians out to one of their seminars, and we saw an automatic Bobcat. Yeah, we've seen that too. It's been on the show, Nicholas. It's been on this show. Yes. The autonomous one, the latest one, is the Rogue X2, which we featured back during our visit to Intermat back in April. If you'd like to go and check that out, you can certainly do that. You have AI feeding equipment on farms in the UK. See, I take such a narrow focus on all things, particularly AI, that I'm just purely, how will it apply to construction and demolition? But there's AI everywhere. Feeding and milking cows. Feeding and milking. I wonder what the cows think about that. Given the subject matter of my article today on our resistance to change, I wonder if the cows are, your AI milking us, that will never catch on. Oh, I don't know though. Thanks for that. That feels good on the udders, said the cow. Yes. No alcohol has been involved in this Today Show. Has been for years, apparently. Who knew? And I do wonder, Steve made the comment earlier about the fact that there is no way of standing in the way of progress. It's so very true. Even the most valid gripes about electric machines, for example, battery life, charging times, what happens to the batteries afterwards, all of that ain't going to stop it. Ain't going to stop it one bit. It might make the manufacturers concentrate a bit more on rectifying those current issues, but it ain't going to stop it. And when you think about all of the things, I've got it fairly readily to hand if you haven't read the article already. Just very quickly, I'm going to say, I am going to do the draw in a moment. There are young people among us who have never and will never use a rotary phone, written or received a check, developed film from a camera, sent a fax or a handwritten letter. They will never use a phone book, an encyclopedia or a physical map. They will never rent movies from a store, listen to a cassette tape, tune a TV with a dial, operate manual car windows, or send a postcard from some far-flung destination. And all of that has happened in not even my lifetime. That's probably happened in about the last 25, 30 years. So how much further will we got to go? Apparently, the milking things, Steve dazzling us with his technical knowledge, the milking things are laser guided onto each teat. Ah, yes. There was a time in my youth when I too were laser guided. I'm not going to dwell on that at all because my wife's next door and she will hit me very, very hard. So shall we find out who has won the Bobcat hat? Bear with me. I need to share my screen and bring up our prize giveaway tool. There we are. We're looking at it now. How many entries did we end up with? We ended up with 12. And I think a couple of those are mine. So if it happens that Diggers and Dozers or Demolition News wins, I'll redraw it. I can promise that's the cat. Nicholas Finch says, unfortunately, I won't be able to stay around to see who wins the hat. About 3 o'clock in the morning here in the United States. I've got to be up for work at 5. Nicholas, have a fantastic day. If you do win the hat, I will let you know. Promise. So let me roll the draw. Here we go. Go. Well, it's wholly appropriate, really, isn't it? Our friend, the Hat Man, Mr. Cullen, has got himself another one to add to his collection. Dan the man has got himself a new Bobcat hat, as he said he wanted. See, your wish, Dan, is my command. Yes, you own a new hat. Steve Williamson says, God damn it, so close. Yes, you were all very close, but not quite. Demo Darth says, fix. Does feel like that. Does feel like that when it's a hat, doesn't it? Does feel like, see, it's almost like a homing instinct. The hats come up, and Dan Cullen seems to get the rub of the green, as it were. Well done, Dan, says Andy Dovell. And there's Dan Cullen, who is overwhelmed with emotion. He too is welling up, just as Steve did earlier in the show. Yes, you've got yourself a new hat. I will have a look after the show, Dan, just to make sure I've got your postal address. I know roughly where you are, but I'll make sure I've got the postal address. If I haven't, I'll drop you a line over on WhatsApp, and we'll come to that in just a moment. There is Peter McKenna saying, well done, Mandangle indeed. Yeah, well done. Dan, congratulations, sir. You are now the proud owner of a new Bobcat hat. Fear not, if you didn't win today, the Bobcat sunglasses will be up for grabs tomorrow. And let me show them to you. They do come in a very nice pouch, which says Bobcat on it. Bear with me 1 second. And this is what they look like. I don't know how well they're going to show, but that's what they look like. That is a matte finish. A matte finish, which, as you can see, features the Bobcat logo. Very smart they are as well. I think I thought the lenses were graduated there. They're not, but they are very smart. If you'd like to be with a chance of winning those, complete with the little pouch in which they come, then please be here on the morrow. I'll be doing the pretty much the same thing again, but tomorrow. You get the idea. Right, that pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. Before, let me see, what do I say about this time? I've been away for a couple of days, I can't remember. I'm going to roll the outro, that's what I say. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. If you can't stick around for that, then please do stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. I hope to see you again very soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, please stick around. I will be back with the Craic immediately after this final word from our key show sponsor. Andy Darvell's just said, I tell you what, let me get some, I'll do the music in a second. Andy Darvell says, I need those glasses. I have to wear sunglasses every day, otherwise I get crazy headaches, even if the sun isn't out. Poxy white clouds are a nightmare. We suffer from poxy white clouds for a completely different reason, funnily enough. Absolute nightmare to photograph and film anything against a white sky. It just has no texture. It's almost like things are floating in space. So yes, I fully understand your issues. They're up for grabs for tomorrow. Chris Ford says, robotic milking machines have removed the joy of playing with several hundred pairs of tits twice a day. Chris Ford, the Breakfast Show's answer to Hugh Hefner. Playing with hundreds of pairs of tits twice a day. Well done. And you managed to get the tit word in as well. Chris, we can rely on you. I am going to put our proper music on in a moment, but allow me quickly to remind you that AI can produce a gangster rap based upon this show.
The news on building and construction, the latest on demolition and destruction, the mystery machine, question of the day, we have got your back. And if you stick around, we will return with the bit we call the Craic. The time has come, it's time to go, so welcome to the Break Fast Show.
Yeah. We are such a big deal these days, we have our own gangster rap. I mean, obviously, we had to create it ourselves. It's not like Ice Cube went into the studio and reached out to us. His people speaking to my people. None of that happened. But that's a thing. That is a thing. Let's have a look. The rap is a no for me. Cringe. Sorry. Fred said more or less the same. In fact, I think Fred said, that's shit. I think those were his exact words. Just amuses me. There is, just to let you know, if anybody is into that kind of thing, it's a freebie. There's a system or a platform called Udio, Udio, and you can basically go on there and you can create music. You can basically give it a text description of what you're looking for. You know, I'd like melodic piano in the style of Richard Clayderman, Gary Muirhead, and it will come up with a 32 second clip of precisely that. But you can also allocate it to, you know, if you've got some lyrics or a rhyme that you want to put in there, it will put a voice to it and all that kind of thing. It will do all of that. It's fantastic. And Mick Norton, it didn't come up over here, but it's come up over on Instagram. It's just said that blast that we saw earlier on of the bridge was actually overseen by the US Corps of Engineers. Did not know that. Raps are for gangsters, not for quaint demolition and construction shows. How very dare you? Are you saying I don't look properly gangster sat here in me hat? Are you really saying that? I mean, obviously, you're right, but how very dare you? Right, yes, we do have that article, What I Told You About. If you want to read that, you can find the link in the chat. It's talking about mainly about the fact that there will be a generation of operators in the not too distant future. And one of the things that I think is at the very end of the article, there is every possibility that all of that tech that we speak about as being advanced, there will come a time when that is a thing that people will never have lived without. we talked today about. Sorry, the music just went weird. Yeah, we talked today about GPS and obstacle avoidance systems and all those kind of things. There will be an operator at some point in the future that will never have known life without all of those things. And given the pace of change, there is every possibility that that future operator, has already been born. You think about that. If there's there could be a boy or a girl baby out there right now who will be joining the construction workforce in 17, 18 years' time, who will never have known a time when we didn't have that tech, when electric and hydrogen wasn't an option. You think about all of the stuff that you now take for granted. I mean, in my time, I caught the tail end of some old mining machines where the operator was sat on a wooden bench. And this is, I know I've been around for a while. That's 35 years. Now, okay, I was at the tail end of that. And obviously, but you think about the comfort of your seat today, suspension mounted, heated, cooled, fully adjustable and everything else. That, as it stands today, is considered a luxury. For operators in the future, 5, 10, 15 years down the line, that will be considered a fundamental human right. That's how fast change moves. And ain't no stopping it, people. No point in trying to stand in the way. Or, as I put it in the article, you can't sit on the geofence. That's what I said, because I have a way with words. I'm going to go through the chat, but we've had some additional comments here. There's a generation who hasn't got a clue how to use the tech. That is where we find ourselves at the moment. We are in that transition. I think we've got the younger ones that are coming up. I mean, I've mentioned this before. I went to the Leica demonstration ground up northwest. I mean, I can't remember exactly where it is. Went up there, and I was up there with a bunch of people from mainly apprentices and what have you from Skanska. And the first part of the presentation was that this is how machine control and everything works. And they all stood there. We know, and that. Speaking to them afterwards, well, we've never seen a paper drawing. Everything we do is digital now. I don't know. That's already happened. There's so much of that has happened. There's a generation that don't want to do more than 8 hours a day. Now, in answer to that question, and you're right, I think there is that not a good thing? Now, I realise we do need to get to a place which I think does come up in the AI video that I've done, which is now available over on YouTube. But I did ask the question about, the ethics and the morality of AI taking over jobs or partially taking over jobs. And one of the things it comes up with is this idea of a minimum earning. So regardless, if your work week, because of the advent of AI, your work week is shrunk from 50 hours a week to 20, you should still earn the same money because you're still, you get the idea. If you think about it, and I know it's something I often joke about, I think we've got whoever came up with the way that work works did it wrong. I'd much rather have 5 days off and do 2 days work. I'd be much better with that. If I could work Saturday and Sunday and then have the rest of the week off, that would suit me just fine. And I know what you're saying about people, and I guess you're hinting about the younger generation not wanting to work full time, but who's the mug here? You work for your 40, 50, 60 years. Look at my father as an example. He was at work by the time he was 15. He finished work at 66, and he was dead before he was 80. So he put in a full life of working flat out all the hours that God sends, and had about 12 years to enjoy it, after which pops his clogs. Would it not be better? Companies wouldn't pay a man 50 hours wage for 20 hours produced. What if there were no choice? Or what if AI basically allowed us to take a step back and reconsider? Fred, my son, Fred, is a big fan of all things Norwegian, for reasons I won't bore you with, but he is a big fan of all things Norwegian. Here's the thing, right? So in Norway, and I can't remember the exact figures, but if you work for McDonald's, you're a burger flipper or you work for McDonald's. If you work in one of the outer towns in Norway, and the local cost of living, housing is cheaper, and so on down the line. So if you're doing that, you are paid a certain wage. If, however, you are working in the middle of Oslo, where property and rent and everything else is more expensive, they increase your wages. They increase your wages to the point where you could earn 2 or even 3 times as much doing it in Oslo as you would in, I can't think of anywhere remote in Oslo, but they've managed to fix that by taking a sensible approach to it. Not one size fits all, but let's accommodate. Let's flex a bit. Nicholas French says, one question before I log off here. Do you guys have United Rentals in the UK or Sunbelt? We have Sunbelt. Up until recently, they were A-Plant. But yes, let me get this right. A-Plant bought Sun. Did A-Plant buy Sunbelt or did Sunbelt buy A-Plant? I can't remember. One of those things happened, and then a couple of years ago we switched over from A-Plant to Sunbelt. That's where we are. HGV drivers now actually take home less than we did 15 years ago. Yeah. Which, again, is not right. But I think one of the key frustrations with anything progress and innovation-wise is the fact that not everybody moves at the same pace. For example, we've had deep fake pornography, so average ladies finding themselves on the internet with their facial features grafted onto a porn actress or whatever it might be, and so on down the line. Sooner or later there will be a law that outlaws that, and so on down the line. But we've got a situation now where I think it's becoming increasingly obvious that some of the job roles that we have now will vanish, and some will fundamentally change. You think about this as an example. And I know absolutely squat about working in a factory, but you imagine 50 years ago, if you were pressing hubcaps, because I've seen this on the TV, I know exactly how pressing hubcap works. So it used to be a case of a human would pick up a piece of aluminium or steel, put it onto a press, pull a sodding great lever, which would pop down, it would cut the holes where they needed to be, shape it, and then you'd pick that one up, put it to one side, and then you get another piece of steel or aluminium, and you do the same thing again. Okay? Now, for one thing, do we really want people putting their hands under a sodding great hydraulic press? No, we don't. What a monotonous, soul-destroying job that is. So now it's been automated. Or if it hasn't been automated, at least now the machine is fed directly, and you just have a human stood there supervising it, pressing a button. That person is still valid. They're still earning a living, even though things have changed. We need governments and legislators to start to accept the fact that there will come a time when parts of what we do for a living don't exist anymore or are partly done by machine. Now, that machine is not going to get paid unless there's an uprising among the robots, in which case we're all in trouble. They're not going to be paid. So, should we not be directing more money to individuals so that they can still earn a living, a living that allows them to eat, feed, and clothe themselves, have a house to live in, and everything else, even though an AI or a robot or machine learning is actually doing part of their job for them. And if it is doing part of their job for them, maybe they get time to spend with themselves or with their family. I'll use myself as an example. If I didn't have to work, I'd probably still write, because it's kind of my thing. It's kind of my catharsis or whatever it might be. It's just how I let off steam. So I write. I would probably still write. But if somebody said you can earn exactly the same amount as you do today, But now you get to spend more time with your kids, your wife, your grandchildren, go fishing, walk the dogs, whatever it might be. I'd snatch their arm off. Why would I not? And where would we be as a race and as a society if, rather than having to factor work into every waking hour, you could actually just take a bit of a step back, take life a little bit easier, not have to work quite so hard. You know, and I've seen, as I say, I saw it with my father, but I've seen it with other people as well. You know, they work, that they revolve their life around work. They work their socks off for 40, 50, 60 years. They retire, that purpose and that structure is taken away, and what happens? They basically wither and die. Wouldn't it be better if you didn't have to do the withering and the dying thing, if you just lived your life and did some work enough to do what you needed to do? Awfully philosophical today, aren't we? Let me go back here where we are. I know our friend Footy is looking for a job. There is Ken Hatcher. Andy Hare is here as well. I'm going to rattle through these because we have already been going for an hour and 20 minutes. I wish a trimmer was voice controlled, would save a lot of pressing the buttons on the screen. You would have to think it's coming. You know, I mean, I've spoken to 4 or 5 equipment manufacturers. I'm not talking about software manufacturers here, but I've been talking to equipment manufacturers about voice commands and text to speech and speech to text and everything else. All of them are aware. You know, this technology is actually available pretty much off the shelf. It would need some modification to suit individual applications, but it's available off the shelf. You know, imagine getting your machine in the morning. It identifies you by electronics, 3D camera, for example. So it spots the fact that Steve Williamson has just got into Steve Williamson's machine. It's already set to his preferences. You know, the joysticks are where they belong and everything else. He puts his hands on the joystick, the machine starts, and it says, "Morning, Steve. What are we doing today?" "Oh, we're doing this, that, and the other." And it sets the machine accordingly. You know, sets the rev, just sets everything up so it's all to hand. If he takes his hands off, as we said with the Bobcat system, it will temporarily shut off. And it literally is. It's off and then it's back on again. So if you literally just scratch your face and then go back to it, it kicks straight back in again. So you've got all of that. Imagine if you could just say to the machine, okay, you know, we're tracking over to here and we're going to be doing this. So it automatically resets the machine in whatever way it needs to be set. When you put a new attachment, you know, you drop off a bucket and pick up a narrower bucket because you're going to be doing a bit of trenching. It recognizes that, it sets the machine accordingly, and you are just good to go. And you've done all of that just by telling the machine. If you think about it, really and truly, the idea of pushing buttons is kind of anathema to us anyway. You know, if you go to work and your boss wants you to do a thing, he won't write it out and give you a piece of paper for you to read. He'll tell you, I need you to go over there and do the thing with the stuff and then put it over there. Would that not be better in a machine environment where you get into a machine and say, "Morning, Dave." That's the name of your machine. "Morning, Dave. Today we're going to be, or this morning we're going to be, set the machine up, would you? Any faults? Really? Okay, I'll take a look at that at lunchtime. It's not urgent. No, cool. Okay, I'll take a look at that at lunchtime. Well, let's crack on. And then at lunchtime, don't forget, you said that you would check the oil filter or whatever it might be. Yeah, not a problem at all. I'll go and do that." You get back in the machine after lunch, having checked the oil filter, and says, "Cheers for the oil filter. We're all hunky-dory now, firing on all cylinders. Let's go to work." Wouldn't that be better? Well, I was saying this is an old fart. Gesture-based controls. Sorry, I've got really itchy hooter this morning. Gesture-based controls. Imagine giving the coffee bean shake to one of the site lads. I think that goes on anyway. I think that would be the only issue. The fact that there are certain gestures that we all do behind the wheels or behind the levers of a machine. You kind of have to program the AI to not recognize those. Imagine going like this out the window at somebody and the machine goes, "Oh, you want to turn around, do you?" No, that would never work. Chris Ford is here. Let's have a look. A good point on the article. Yeah, if you'd like to read that article, you can. It's over on things. I can't remember. Demolition Insider is where you'll find it. It's also on LinkedIn as well this morning if you want to go and have a look. It's called Don't Sit on the Geofence. Let's have a look. Speaking to the Trimble, asking to change a file to road layout. Then onto drains. Trimble change file to drainage version 3. That would save pressing the screen 4 times and stopping. Yeah. Yeah, and even when you think about it from, and I realise we're only talking about seconds here, but rather than having to consult the screen, do a thing, consult the screen, do a thing, imagine if you're digging, you've got to dig to a certain depth or a certain grade or whatever it might be, and when you hit that, the machine actually says, that'll do, you've hit depth, let's crack on. Rather than, am I there? Yeah, I'm there, okay. Imagine we just said, yeah, job well done. We've done exactly what we set out to do. I did think this was a good point from Steve Williamson when he was saying about social media's take on innovation and change. I mentioned this to Bobcat. I also mentioned it to both JCB and Volvo when I've seen them recently about what I perceive as something of a backlash against electric machines, all of which is understandable. I mean, don't get me wrong, I am a firm believer in all things electric. I think that is at least part of the future. But I understand where people are coming from on that. But I do wonder if that backlash would be quite as vehement if it weren't for social media. If you were, back in the day, if you were anti-electric machine, you would be a single voice in the wilderness. You might tell your mates on site, well, I'm not sure about this electric thing. But by and large, that is as far as your voice would go. It would go on site and that's where it would stay. With the advent of Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and Instagram and all those sort of things, all of a sudden your opinion is amplified. And not only is it amplified, but it draws others of a similar mind to you. If you say electric is crap, it'll never catch on. Sooner or later, somebody else of a similar mindset will find that. And now, rather than a lone voice, you are 2 voices, and then 4, and then 8, and so it goes on. I think Steve makes a really valid point there. I hadn't considered that, mainly because I wrote that article in quite a hurry while it was still fresh in my head. Actually wrote it on the plane on the way back from Czech Republic. Such is my dedication to duty. Chris Ford once stirred a cup of coffee with a pen, ended up with a blue stick in it. I will tell you this. I will tell you this quick tale. I always have a tale, don't I? My dad had a moustache for years. I mean, most of my life he had a moustache. Anywho, when my other half, my girlfriend, who is now my wife, Ruth, decided to come and join this family of ours, she'd come around as my girlfriend, and occasionally she'd pop out into the kitchen and make the entire family a cup of tea. And my dad always complained that her tea wasn't strong enough, or what have you done to this tea? It looks orange. So as an act of revenge once, she basically put blue food colouring in his tea, gave it to him, and he was sat there watching the TV, didn't take a blind bit of notice, took a huge swig, and we all started laughing. He didn't realise, carried on. And yes, he ended up blue moustache. His tongue and his lips, within an hour or 2, they were back to normal colour. Moustache, all that stayed that way for a good couple of days, including going to work. Yes, very rock and roll with his blue moustache, he was. What have we got here? That was our question of the day. What old technology do you miss the most? And I've got to be honest, I thought about this. I wouldn't say I miss it because, I've got AirPods and I've got an iPhone now. So, the ability to take music and podcasts and stuff on the road with me, listening to podcasts on the plane, fantastic. Love all of that. But unless you were there, here's the thing, right? I've already told the story about the Walkman, the fact that you could take music with you. That was a remarkable thing. But my dad bought a video recorder when I was... I don't even know how old I was, 10, 11, something like that. And for those of you a certain age, you will remember there was a bit of there was a divide whether the industry would go for Betamax versions or VHS. Betamax was the Sony version. It was smaller. In many ways, it was better. So my dad decided, I'll pay the extra money and I'll go Sony. The rest of the world went VHS, and Betamax ultimately died. But to demonstrate the video recorder, it arrived unannounced in our house, and I'd never had any experience of it, was unaware that these things existed. So I got home from school one afternoon, and he had the news on. TV news was playing. And he said, watch this. So I sat there watching the news thinking, well, this is boring. I don't know what you're saying. And then he stopped and pressed the play button, and we watched the same bit of news over again. And you could hear the cogs in my head whirring before it twigged that he's just recorded television. My dad has just recorded television. Mind blown. Obviously, we take it all for granted now. We've all got streaming services and whatever. But the time you see that for the first time, much the same as, I'm sure, I don't physically remember this. I know my wife does. I don't actually remember this. But the day that there was a switchover, you went from a black and white television to a colour. Just imagine that. Just imagine that, you've been watching this dull, grey, black and white thing, and all of a sudden it's like, colours. Unbelievable. Loads and loads and loads of guesses on our mystery machine. Steve, I think and there is the thing. I don't miss anything, and that's the truth. Why would I? Why would you? If somebody could give you a machine today that actually belongs 25 years hence, and it's got all of the, it floats on hover pads, and it knows you by your first name, and it sends you a card for your birthday. And if you had all of that, would you really look back and think, yes, I remember that wooden bench seat that I had back in... I don't think you would. Really don't think you would. There's Jim Turner saying, used to have 3 county OS street map in my snap bag when I used to be on the plant hire. When I was growing up, and I would include my own car, I don't even know what they're called, the slots in the car doors, both sides, passenger side and driver side, filled with maps. I'm bearing in mind where I live. I had a London A to Z, and then I had a bigger one for the country. I had one, I think I had a JCB one once. Bloody great thing it was. But that used to sit in the car, always at hand. Who the hell uses one of those now? Yep, quick reminder, if you find yourself in a W.H. Smith anytime in the next couple of weeks, go find yourself a copy of Earth Movers, read all about Mr. Williamson and his journey from quiet, reserved Highland machine operator to global superstardom. It really is a Star is Born story. Never mind your Lady Gaga. He did it first and probably did it best as well. Still rattling through here. Yeah, I think most people, funnily enough, most people here are remembering tech, but not really missing it much. I mean, who would go back to a ZX Spectrum? As a collector's item, possibly, as an antique piece, but not really. Gary Muirhead, question of the day, my Nokia 101. Wow, that battery could last a lifetime. Last a lifetime, and you got to play Snake on it. Oh, yes. Spent many an hour playing Snake on my Nokia phone. All of my Nokia phones, in fact. Good to see our friend Mike Wolf over here from World Highways. I've got to send him some videos later today, assuming Fred's pulled them together, but I think he probably has. And yes, there's already a design for the replacement for that Francis Scott Bridge in place. Be looking forward to keeping up with that one in the fullness of time. I think we've probably covered just about everything there, haven't we? Bit of chatter about Ditch Witch, who we now know are based down in Swansea. Yes, glasses. Don't forget glasses up for grabs tomorrow. That's what the bag looks like. Make sure you tune in for that. They will be available. There is my wife saying, "Can you believe we watched snooker on a black and white TV set?" I remember doing it, but I also remember shortly after, the world made the first switch to colour. And there's a famous bit of commentary, I can't remember who said it. For those of you watching in black and white, the red ball is behind the blue one. Yeah. If you're watching in black and white, they're all grey. They're just different shades of grey. Question of the day, Sony CD player. Yes, absolutely. Watch Black Mirror, says Steve Williamson. The one with the contact lens that can record your whole life, record meetings to watch later and so on. Amazing. There is a system. I'd need to check. I can't remember what it is, but there is a system that you can have on an Apple Mac computer that does precisely that. You can't take it with you, obviously, so it's not contact lenses, but it records what you do. Imagine that. Imagine if you are one of those workers that works in various locations, and maybe you work for multiple different companies, multiple clients, and you need to charge at the end of your day, week, month, you need to charge for the time that you spent on those individual clients. Just go into that and it will tell you exactly, you spent 2 hours working for JCB, 4 hours working for Volvo, 6 hours working for Bobcat, and you spent 10 minutes talking about Caterpillar. And it would do all of that for you. Imagine that. Make my life so much easier. You have automatics on a couple of Volvo machines here. Work with GPS and stops automatically. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. As it should be. As it should be. And again, I do think we need one of my thoughts on that operator presence system from Bobcat. It is unquestionably an interference, and it's an interference for all the right reasons. If you do pick up your phone, it is only right that work group should stop and prevent you from doing something stupid. I think that's a great idea, but it is an interference. And going back to what we were saying earlier in the show, there will be those that think that is a fantastic safety step forward, and there are others, Big Brother's watching. That's going to get on my bloody nerves, and unfortunately, they will take to social media, and it's exactly the way they do it. Yeah, that's the way life works these days, people. Right, folks, that is an hour and 40 minutes. I have things to do, and people to see, and places to be. I'm not going anywhere, to be perfectly honest. But yes, that will do us for today. So don't forget, check back tomorrow where we will be giving away the Bobcat sunglasses. That's the second time I've done that. We will be giving away the Bobcat sunglasses, bringing you up to date with all other things, and I'll be bringing you some footage from our trip to Bobcat, hopefully. I hope Fred's listening to that because he's working on it as we speak. Until then, everybody, have a fantastic day. Thanks for all your input. We'll be back tomorrow. Till then, everybody, stay safe, look after yourselves. I'll see you tomorrow. Cheers.